everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is an interesting term that not a lot of investigators know about, but I think it's, for myself, being a paranormal investigator, I think it's really important for lots of people to know about, particularly when it comes to the paranormal. Now, obviously, I want to know what is, cryptomnesia, and what has it got to do with the paranormal? Because, like I said, it's not a very usual term that gets used, or something that a lot of investigators know a lot about. So, again, love to use all of your comments and your thoughts or anything like that on this particular subject, because it is a tricky one, and I mean tricky because of what it could possibly insinuate, and that will make sense as I talk a little bit later on about how it actually does relate to the paranormal. So, what is cryptomnesia? It sounds like a horrible disease, but it's not. In fact, if anything, it's something that is everybody in whether in the paranormal or not is actually susceptible to. A lot of writers, people who do a lot of writing, fictional information as well as not non-fictional, are very aware of this particular type of thing. So it's interesting, and I'll talk a little bit about it, of course. So what is cryptomnesia? Now, of course, a lot of investigators have heard the term crypto, because obviously that means hidden. And that word obviously gets used, or that part of that word gets used from cryptozoology, so hidden zoology, about the study of animals. So of course that's probably what that's often a term that's quite familiar. So of course that's one part, that's one clue. It means hidden. But mnesia meaning memory. So it's actually hidden memory. You're thinking, well, so what? I lose things all the time. But there's a reason for this. So firstly, cryptomnesia is basically hidden memory, but it's something that you don't realize you've remembered. Now, stick with me with this. It's not like when you've lost your car keys or your house keys, like I thought I did a few weeks ago. That was fun. It's nothing like that. Those particular situations, say for instance, if you put something down and you walk away and you forget where you put it, that's actually more latent memory. So that's more of it's not necessarily something that you've lost over years, or something you've put down and you will never remember again kind of thing. So it's more of a short-term prospect with that as well. Hi Daniela, hi Karen, good to see you guys. Hi Paul. So it's more it's a lot more deeper than that. So that's the main part of it. Because with memories and the way our minds work, from what we know, because remember, we don't know everything, but from studies have shown, from how we actually recall information, our memories can be influenced over time as well. So I may, I've thought I've put my keys down in a certain spot. I've come back, I can't find them. Over time, I thought, I lost my keys, and it was a cold day. I lost my keys, and it snowed that day, which actually it did today, about half an hour from where I live. It's things like that. So I'm actually, starting to add to that memory. So we actually are quite susceptible to actually changing our memories as well. So it may be considered a simple thing, but over time you have to be very careful that we're not actually being influenced or influencing our memories over time as well. Sometimes it can feel like we're actually remembering a song for the first time, or hearing a song for the first time, going, wow, I really love this song. It's fabulous. It's one of my favorites, this kind of thing. We have to be very careful that, possibly I've actually heard that before and really liked it previously. It does happen. It can happen as well. The joys of being human. What did you say? Thanks, Nicole. So there's that. So with cryptomnesia, what does this have to do with the paranormal? If you're forgetting things or remembering things, this is where it starts to become a little bit interesting. Now, think about from psychic readings. You may go to a psychic or a medium, and they may produce information that's very similar to, or something you can relate to, particularly if it's a high profile case, if you're somebody that's quite well known, or somebody who has a case within the media or anything like that. This particular medium or psychic may not realize they've come across your information previously. So I know it's a very, very long shot, but this is a probably clearest example I can give on cryptomnesia. So say for instance, I'm one of the people that was able to survive Ivan Milat's murders here in Australia, and I went to a psychic and I said, look, I want to talk to my family, and they may actually have somehow read a case of me having survived and said, look, I've got this feeling that you've survived a trauma. I don't know how, you've managed to get through such big hurdles in your life. They actually will still feel genuine in doing so. So I'm not insinuating the fact that all psychic mediums are fake and fraudulent and wanting to sort of take you on a ride. Absolutely not, because we're all susceptible to this. But they may actually sort of pull this information from something they've read previously that they have no recollection of actually having read. And it does happen. It's the way we're built. Now, the reason why this kind of stuff happens with our minds and our memories is because think of, for the 21 years I've been on this planet, imagine me remembering all those days in 21 years. It would be way too much. It's too much for us to comprehend, and yet what we do remember often has an emotional connection to it. So when you go to mediums and psychics, they will probably bring up information that is quite emotional to you. So keeping that in mind as well. Like I said, unless you've got photographic memory, awesome. I love those people. Very, very rare. But the rest of us don't have photographic memory and have to rely on our memories of our lives so far. So, we don't have, we can only take in bits of information and parts of that, and often, like I said, they have an emotional connection attached to them. At the same time, I can't remember all I did of yesterday, but I would be blown away if I could. It would be lovely. I'm jealous of those with photographic memory. So because of that, we're going to take bits of it. We're not going to remember everything, and that's fine. But with cryptomnesia, it's absorbing information previously that you haven't had any recollection of doing so. I'll talk a little bit about how to be aware a bit more of that too. So that's one thing. Another interesting point to this when it comes to the possibility of why has this got anything to do with the paranormal, think about reincarnation. Sometimes there can be very strong feelings when you go to a location and think, I've been here before, or you feel really drawn to a particular subject. And I feel like I was there in ancient Egypt. I can feel the sand in my feet and the sandals and the blasting dry air. And I was there. I was really there. And it may possibly, I'm only saying possibly here, be something that you may have read before. You've always been interested, or there was something you'd seen, or a movie or of some sort. That this can actually happen. I know it seems very far-fetched, but it can actually happen. So you may feel drawn to something, but you actually not realized you've actually read and or researched that particular scenario in the past. Hi Charmaine, hi Jules, good to see you, lovely. Yeah, triggered memories, absolutely, Karen. Is exactly, Blair, it's past life. So that's why I think cryptomnesia can actually probably be more used to explain, is more in past life and reincarnation, as opposed to possibly a psychic or medium giving you a reading. I mean, like, the internet is fabulous, but it's terrible at the same time, because this information is just so readily available for people to be able to research themselves. And so that could actually be something that can happen. It just makes it harder for us as investigators, and also for mediums as well, because I know, as from what I know from most mediums I've ever come across, they do want to give genuine readings. And I know a lot of them say that the feeling of the information when it comes through is from a different place. But I think it's really important to also remember the fact that cryptomnesia does happen. It can happen, and then best intentions by all means, but may not necessarily be pulling this information from a place of possible spirit, but a place of actually previously researching a situation that this person may actually be connected to. It can happen, rare, but it can happen as well. Hi Carly, good to see you, lovely one. So there's that as well. Obviously, how do you handle something like this? It's like, okay, so as an investigator, great, Beth, let's be aware of the fact that people can have stuff they've remembered, not remembering, absorbing from years ago, and they're in a case, and it's a high profile case, because there's a few that I've been involved with. Of course, I can't really say which ones I have been. Who's to say that, how do you handle it? How do you handle it as an investigator? If your body's built this way to be able to remember everything, well, that means we're all stuffed, right? Not necessarily. There are a couple of things you can keep in mind. Firstly, if you are reading and researching something and you're stressed, that means you're more likely, not necessarily 100%, but you're more likely to be susceptible to cryptomnesia, because although you're reading the information and trying to absorb it, you're not fully there, and you're not fully remembering what you're actually, trying to absorb. So with that being the case, when it comes to recording, you're less likely to remember the fact that you were there because your mind had 60 million things going on. So, I mean, in an ideal world, wouldn't it be great if we just weren't stressed when we actually did investigating and researching? Wouldn't that be wonderful? But hindsight is a beautiful thing. Keeping that in mind, being aware is the first step. So being aware when you're researching anything, excuse me, oh, when you're researching anything, make sure that you're at least trying to be in a chilled space, because you're less likely to fall into the trap of cryptomnesia. And the reason why I mentioned before about writers having this fallacy, or this particular, or being aware of this particular cognitive behavior, is the fact that often a writer, and particularly one who does a lot of creative writing, may actually go and or read a book or read a story or watch a story, or however this information has come across, and then years later go, I've got this great idea for a story, and they write it out, and and wholeheartedly believe it's come from a place of genuinely having created it, when in fact it's not the case at all. And you know, people may come across and go, well, actually, you know what, that's exactly what my book's about. No, hang on a second. This came all from here and up here. I didn't read anything like that. And plagiarism and all that sort of stuff gets into play as well. Geez, I'm stressed all the time. I know it, Nicole, exactly. I said, try not to be stressed. Ha! Wonderful being human. I find that persons and vibrations differ, and it's a genuine past life compared to cryptomnesia. Exactly. I think that's the important thing is I know a lot of mediums and psychics know over time where they're getting their information from. So maybe it's possibly something where people who are just starting out need to keep in mind as well, that cryptomnesia can happen to them. And as I said, you don't even have to be a psychic medium to have it happen. I mean, it can happen to me. It probably has happened to me. I may not even know it as yet. But our way our bodies are built is to be able to only store so much information, so we're not going to always remember where we actually get it from. So yeah, very good point. Very good point, Jules. So that as well, sometimes I guess you could say if somebody feels that they are relaying information about a past life, another way to be able to see whether or not that's something that could be easily traceable, or could be because of something that's been out on social media, or another way to be able to research and back that story up is to actually go and do that, do your research. Say, okay, well, you've found this, and this about this particular life, past life. Okay, I'm going to go and have a look and see whether or not there's anything out there that actually correlates with that. Now, normally we do that to validate a medium, but it could also be a way to keep in mind to actually say, well, actually, this is something that could be traceable. So it could go the other way. This could be some information you may have actually come across previously that you may not have remembered. Not to say, again, I'm not accusing anybody of being fraudulent in any way. I do certainly believe there's the possibility of people having the ability to actually know information without the conventional ways that we know of it today. But it's something to keep in mind. And as I said, I'm always about plausible explanations for certain aspects of how our minds and bodies work, and we are actually built to survive. And there's only so much memory we can actually ascertain. Ancestral paths help. Okay, that's an interesting one, Blair. Of course, there could be that too. Using your ancestral paths as a way to be able to go, okay, well, that's what's happened to me previously. Do I have a recollection of that? Being very careful of that, of course, is the possibility of what maybe your family may have told you as you're growing up about your ancestral path, if they're very open to it as well, and for you to possibly have forgotten that, and then over the years actually rediscovered it. Again, it's a long shot, but it's a possibility, and we always need to look at everything and be as rational as we can with regards to that. So again, it's a very interesting thing. It's not about latent memories. It's about recording information that you didn't actually remember absorbing previously, and something to keep in mind when we're dealing with mediums and psychics as well as ourselves too, when we're dealing with possible paranormal cases. So that's where it fits into. I'd love to know your thoughts, whether or not you've either encountered that yourself, whether you've been suspicious of that yourself, whether you've been somebody who's given a reading and not really sure. And like I said before, a lot of mediums and psychics who are quite established really do know within themselves where they feel they get their information from. But I'd love to know your thoughts on it. It's a touchy subject because it does occur on the sense of the possibility that maybe mediums and psychics aren't getting information from spirit or directly from an energy perspective from somebody. But like I said, I'm all about PAEs, your possible alternative explanations, and I think it's good to be open and remember that this actually does exist and we're all susceptible to it. So Love to know your comments. Use them downstairs. Downstairs. I'll just go downstairs. And I'll reply to them all. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next week.